Okay, with this particular part, I'm gonna show you how we're gonna just glue these in. Now, all I did is I cut these off. Broomsticks are about the size of your holes here on pearls, and all I did is I took a belt sander that I have right here, and I just went ahead and held those at an angle to where they'll fit in there. And then I'm gonna line them up kind of with the grain that way, and then pop them in once there's glue on there. So the first thing we got to do on both of them is we got to get glue on the inside of the circles there. And on the plugs. So what I'm going to do is just kind of roll these in here and get them pretty well glued up. Okay. Again, it's kind of fun getting your fingers all messy. And then take the excess, and we're going to go inside here. Now, this is a good thing about having the latex, the lacquer on there. This will come right off of lacquered areas, and of course, these are all open on the inside. So the grain's open. So let me just line that up, take a hammer, and once this gets locked in here, it's locked in. So tap that out just a little bit. Leave a little bit proud. Let the glue off, and then the Dremel tool will bring that right down. Then we just do the next one. Okay. That lined up. There we go. So let those dry, and just like the other one, I'll cut those off. Now where we have these holes here, I'm going to drill those out larger and then put dowels on that. Okay, now I've drilled out two of the holes already to get the 3/8 inch ones in there, and all I do is just put that in there, and that's it. Okay, so those will be able to accept 3/8 dowels, and we have those already. So again, all we've got to do is glue them up. Put them in. And tap them in with a hammer. And that is into the other side. So we just do that a few times, and we're done with these. Get all of our excess glue off, and then we'll be ready to move on. Now these all right here have 5/16, and they're already the right size. So all I got to do is just again delete these right here, and each one of these will be tapped in. Really easy to go. Again, you can order these online. They're really easy to get a hold of, so it's really not that big a deal. Now this is from the old. Now I'm going to be getting Masters spurs for this. I'm going to put on some really good hardware on these guys. Okay. And again, clean up our excess glue. And that's how quickly you can start really fixing this stuff. Next part is just chopping them off. And really, that's no big deal. Okay? Easy. Now, I do have some other holes here, like these here. I'm going to actually fill these back up and re-drill those. So that will give us a lot better purchase in here and strength. Now I'm going to go to the other side and go ahead and put my other pins in, and that way I'll have the all the dowels without the special types of stuff I got to do. So this one again, whoops, we don't want to use that one. Well, I think that's good enough. And these dowels, I like these dowels that have the flutes in them much better. That keeps the glue in there and makes a much better bond with the shell. So these will be just as strong as the laminates because the grain is going this way and that way, and that makes for a very, very, very strong repair. Now I'm going to stop here with this one because I need to do a lot of work right here on the shell, and that's going to take a lot more. That's going to take some clamping, and I wanted to kind of strengthen this up before we really got glue in there and really get that squared away, because I can always drill a hole through the glued material, but I can't really get glue behind something that's not open. Now on the on these two here, we had 2 or 3 holes we had to fill up too. And, well, I'm just going to drill those out and put 3/8 in them. And that should structurally fix all that. It's because that hole right there was quite large. So I'm going to go to the next size up and get those and glue those in. Now, all the stuff pulling away, we're going to be getting that taken care of because the filler on the outside will take care of that. So, you know, I'm not lacquering these, so I really don't. It doesn't concern me about that. We can put some wood filler in there and really make this a smooth so we don't have any bulges. That's my concern about the outside when doing wraps. I mean, if this was getting lacquered, yeah, I'd have a problem lacquering anything that I'm putting this much cosmetic into. All right, so we have the 18-inch fully filled with all the dowels we need to. They're going to be glued up. Now this one's already set up. That's already glued up. So we can put all these to rest. And now we can work on the tin. And the tin takes, I think, 5/16. I think. Yeah, the 5/16 are going to be going in there. Now I did have some 5/16 dowel rod. Now what you can do is you can get just dowel rod and then take nippers and just nip it off and use them that way, and then just set them in there. So that's a quick way, and usually these are softer wood, but again, I really don't care because my grain is going opposite the hole, so it's going to be a lot more protective of what goes on. But I'm going to use these since we have them. So. So there you go. Now I got all the holes that I wanted to be filled in, with the exception of working on the bass drum where the spurs are all a mess. So again, this is all pretty straightforward. All I got to do is allow this to dry, and then I'll be able to start just cutting those off and flattening down, and then I can get on with the real stuff, with getting into preparation of the shell outside and the inside, cleaning it all up, and getting my wood filler in all the little indentations and places where wood peeled out, in preparation to actually get the wrap on it. So that's the glue up. Okay, now I'm going to be using this saw to cut this off, and you've seen this in starts of the other videos, and this is a really good saw for this. It doesn't work so well on the inside. I would recommend on the inside, especially on your smaller diameter toms and stuff, to use a Dremel tool with a really small radius circular cutoff. It works better, so you're not really gouging the interior plies. But this works very well. I mean, you just line it up and you just move slowly. You go right through each one, and that's pretty flush. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go over that. I'm going to cut all these off, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with my Dremel tool in doing this. So again, just as I said, it's pretty straightforward. It's just really easy to cut these things off, and that's it. A little bit of glue there to take off, and I'm going to take these down. They're a little proud right now, so that means above the surface, and that is just perfectly fine. I don't really care about that, because I'm going to take them down and then grind that off a little bit, and then I'm going to put in a bit of wood filler, and that's going to be all nice and easy. As I said, you can just do this pretty quickly. It just is so fast with this thing, and it's pretty flat. Not much is going to be necessary on the Dremel tool. And that is 10 lugs done. So again, you can do this pretty rapidly. Now I just have to do the inside guys here, and those take a little bit more concentration when cutting them out. So I'm going to do that off camera, and this thing will be ready now. All I got to do is, I said, take those down with the Dremel tool, and then that will be ready for finishing. Okay, so now I've got my Dremel tool, and now I've got the round grinder on it. I did try on the bass drum with this. I thought I could get a lot flatter with that, but that did not work as well. So I'm going to use this little round thing here. And again, high, fast is good. And then all I'm going to do is just take that off down lower. And that is now lower than the rest. And after that, I'll just take some wood filler and just bring that back up, sand that off, and that'll be nice and flat. And I'll do the same thing on the inside as well. So this is a very fast way to do this, and I think it's the strongest way to fix and delete holes and make this thing. Well, I apologize for this section in my video here. My mic went out here, something became unplugged. But what we're looking at here is trying to get the delaminations opened up so I can get glue down in the plies there. And what I've done is I've taken a putty knife, a very thin, flexible one, And you also see I have a box cutter razor blade. I cut myself later on, so you got to be careful, you know, with that. But what the whole idea is to first open up these plies to where we can get all the glue voids, get the glue in just as far as we can without tearing it up. So usually have splits right there, plies that are closer to the surface, right around those lug holes there. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to open up very carefully without breaking the rest of the plies, and make sure I get glue all the way down in there as far as I can. So if I get glue as far as I can, once I put it under compression of the clamps will then hold that all together, and then it will actually compress it in, and capillary action will drive it into these areas. Now, I don't have to open up the whole ply. These are just voids that came from the manufacturing, or wasn't glued quite well, or compressed quite well, or some other reason. But again, it's very important to get that glue all the way down to the bottom of that particular area there, and in doing so, you'll make a very, very good solid repair. And again, it's just fiddly. It takes time. And remember, the glue doesn't set up. This isn't an epoxy. This is going to take 30 minutes or so to set up. And that's why, again, I use the good wood glues that are a little thinner, and that way it'll absolutely go into the plies a lot better and deeper. In this section here, I'm going to be setting up with my those little wood blocks I made out of 20-inch bass drum thin wall shells. I basically cut it up, made clamps, and covering it up with wax paper so it doesn't stick to the surface. I mean, I'm using a lot of glue here. It's going to run out everywhere. And if I have wood to wood, it's going to bond that together. And if I pull that off, it's going to basically tear that inner ply. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of trying to repair the plies as they are right now. So here's the inside one, and the curve is going with the inside one. And the radius is a little bit different, but I've cut it off to where it'll fit within 16 or 18 or just about any size here. And spring clamps get you to where you need to be, gets everything set up, and then I can position the big C-clamp where it needs to be and show you the clamping pressure. Now what I do, I like to put this C-clamp on about halfway down, and that way it will squeeze not only up but also down into the shell, the glue. And I like to have the clamping force of the C-clamp toward the outside that's pulling the arc up, and then two smaller C-clamps pulling the arc the other way. And that's kind of the clamping strategy here. Now this is another reason why I use the wood glue, is because it doesn't have a problem with your clamping pressure. You can put as much clamping pressure as you want. And in putting these things together, I look at to where I basically space it out to where the whole arc is pulling one way and then the other way opposite each other, so all the plies will be pulled together. And you may have to rearrange the clamps a little bit. They can get a little bit irritating and not getting it exactly where you want it. Clamp placement is important, but it's not that critical to the whole process. Now, this particular section, I'm going to basically open up another area here, which I'm going to fix after this particular one sets up. This will take, the clamping force needs to be on it a minimum of 20 minutes. I like to leave it about an hour. And after about an hour and 20 minutes, I started working on this. Just like I'm going to be, the same laminations that I deal with on my bass drum hoops here, I'm going to be doing later on in this video, is the same theory here. You're just trying to get glue all through the plies as much as you can to reestablish integrity of those plies. So that's, again, clamps are on. I'll wait about an hour and 20 minutes, and now I'm back, and the other one's been on about an hour and 20 minutes. It's going to take me about 10-15 minutes here to get this all worked in, and then I can move the clamps over, and therefore I'll have almost an hour and 45 minutes on the clamps here. Now, as I said, I'm using wood glue here, and the wood glue is a lot thinner. It'll actually go in, and then again using the razor blade to pry the plies apart, and then work the glue down deep into the nooks and crannies there, deep into those plies. And I may have to open it up a little bit more, but again, careful. Just you'll feel it coming loose, and you'll also feel the fact when it's not coming loose. And when it doesn't come loose, don't force it. You don't want to force anything here. You just kind of want to feel the wood bend and give a little bit, and if it does, you can pull out. And again, you can kind of bounce back and forth on that putty knife and the razor blade, and really get the glue worked pretty deep in there. And then once we get it all worked in, it's pretty straightforward. It's just nothing more than transferring the clamps from the previous one. That's where I cut myself with a razor blade, so you got to be careful there. And again, that's all there is to gluing these things up. It's fiddly, but once you get done and clamped, it works. So now we've got all that taken care of in here. We can just go ahead, pull this one off, and again, showing you how we do this clamping is pretty straightforward here. And that is why we use wax paper on this. So it will stay where it's supposed to stay. First, clamp. There we go. Put on the big C clamp, and we put that really close to the top there. Squeeze out all our stuff. Whoops, move him just a little bit over here. There we go. Okay. And then we do the same thing with our small C-clamps. Get that good and tight and all clamped in there. And that should make for a very good repair on that delamination. Oops. Okay. So there you go. We got two delaminations again done, and you can see this one is all cleared up. No problem there. So we just got one on this other side and then one on that. Now I'm not going to show you all the rest of this. I'm going to go ahead and then get into my bass drum hoops and that. So that'll be a little bit easier to do. And again, this is pretty simple, straightforward. You just want to make sure you got good clamping pressure on there. Oh yeah, that's another reason why I use the wood glue in these delaminations and these dowels, because when you get to the strength, I didn't use epoxy on these because epoxy does not like clamping strength. So these kind of do a lot better, and you can clamp it harder, and the glue behaves better with the clamping stress and the clamping forces. So just a little thing to do. Again, know how to use your glues and all your tools and everything. Okay, so the last part we're going to get into is dealing with the hoop. And I've got a bunch of pictures here on what I've done. I put a bunch of pins in here, wood pins, basically to separate the plies. Now I got two separations, one high and one low. And I need to open it up because I have to get glue in there. Now the reason I'm doing this way, you can break the hoop, but since it was already delaminated here and then on the opposite side, I'm just trying to save it, and if I can glue it, that's less money I have to worry about. But, and it will be good. These are maple hoops. Again, they're not really well produced, but they're not really that bad. But they have a little bit of variation in the manufacturing, So what I can do is I can recover these. So what I'm going to show you is the steps that I do. It's very similar to the ply separations that I did on the shells. It's the same thing, except it's just narrower. And this is easier to clamp, so you see me using vice grips and clamps and stuff like that. And it's a real problem because I got to get glue all in here, and then I got to separate that one out and get glue in there and make sure all my glue stays in there, and then clamp it all up. And the more glue I can get in this area, the better it is, because it will hold everything together, and I really won't have to worry about getting it all the way into the nooks and crannies at the ends. You'll have another place holding it, and it'll be like essentially a new hoop. So here we go. Okay, now again, I've got my 2 pieces of old bass drum shell that I put together, and basically I use these for clamps, and this works pretty good. Again, I'm going to be sandwiching them just like I did beforehand, concentrating on the outer area. Now I'm going to draw a black mark on here to show where the center of this is, and again, I'm going to be sanding this off, so I'll be able to show. I'll be able to take that off with sanding, so that's not a big deal. So the next thing is try to get glue into here without getting glue all over everything else. And this is pretty good, having a wider area here to deal with. Just kind of let the glue work its way down. Now where we don't, that's where I bring my razor blade in again and just work it into the cracks. I can do this on camera and show you what's all going on here. So I'm also working it into this other crack here on the top at the same time. Work it into this area here. Then I'm going to flip it around and do it the other way. Glue in there. Got another delamination here on the top I need to work that glue into. And I like using a razor blade because if it's going to open up, I would rather be the one to open it up. Just prying a little bit, I can see that there's glue getting in there. Yep, starting to run through, so that's a good sign. Okay. Now the moment of truth. Take all these pins out. Okay, just like we did before, putting one on the inside and one on the outside. And as before, we'll get her started with a clamp here. That way I can run the C-clamp with both hands. Okay. Okay. There's that guy. Him over. Okay, there we go. Now there's this other little area out here that I need to get glue into. Just noticed that that's why I like to open these things up really wide and get that glue in there, serious like. Okay. It is messy, but when done right, it will work very, very well. Put just a C-clamp on here. There's my smaller C-clamp. There he is. And this one, since it's not real big, I'm just going to snug it down with this C-clamp here. And we'll look at the other side and see how that is. It looks like we closed almost everything up. Okay, there's that. Pull him off and put him just a little deeper in here. There we go. Okay. Now I've got everything clamped all up. And that is everything all clamped up. So it looks kind of crazy, but in an hour, this will be all good. And then I can go to the other side and get that delamination taken care of. So it is a bit fiddly, but nonetheless, it does work. Now with this bass drum hoop, I've also got all the delaminations taken care of. I've just got one more where this beading ply needs to be kind of compressed in a little bit, smoothed out, and this is also maple. So again, I've already got my plies done and back from being separated. I just need to do a little once over to make sure everything's good, and then I can start sanding it. Now the other thing I got to do is, the reason this starts happening is because you're pulling weird direction on the claws. So if the claw is not made for the squaring up, it'll sit there and pull a weird direction on here, and that can cause delamination. So what I'm going to be doing is, once I get this all squared away, I'm going to be routing out a round over on this to make it to where the clamp can sit in there without kind of pulling up the inside of it, which can be a contributing factor to these delaminations. Now on the head side, I'm going to get that all flat. I'm going to lay it down and make sure it's all good and flat all the way. So, well, we've worked our way through the assessments of what's going on, the strategy of how to do this, and what I'm going to end up with as a drum set, and the steps I'm going to take. And I'm done with the delaminations and the ply separations. I'm done with deleting holes. So the next video is going to be more on the finishing. I'm going to be using a tung oil finish on the outside, and then I'm going to also be using the Total Boat bilge paint on the inside to give me an extra ply and a more sound reflective inner surface. So again, it's a lot of sanding, and it's going to be a pretty short video. I'm just going to show you how I take the Dremel tool and kind of round off the dowels and whatnot that I stuck into the holes to delete them, and then I'm going to show you covering up with wood filler, and then the priming. So there's just a lot of sanding involved. You don't need to see a 2-hour video on sanding. So anyway, so till we meet again, till the next phase, dealing with the surfacing and the coating on the inside, and then also the finishing and the bearing edge surfacing in the next video. After that, we'll be into the real meat of it. We're going to get into covering and then putting the hardware back on. So I hope you stick with me through this process. Again, you're going to see a pretty neat little drum set once we're done here as well. So anyway, thanks again, and we will see you later. Till then, I hope you fare well.